Oh, come on. There's no way I could do a series on British horror movies without covering 28 Days Later, Danny Boyle's revolutionary zombie apocalypse story about a small group of survivors struggling to stay alive after a deadly virus reduces the UK's population to raging, flesh-eating monsters. It was simultaneously chilling, exciting, and poignant when it came out 20 years ago, and it's just as good today. The film begins in a shady government research lab, because there's always a shady government research lab in movies like this. Anyway, a group of animal rights activists break in and release the test subjects, one of which just so happens to be infected with a deadly virus that causes extreme rage. It's basically like Twitter, except it works quicker. And well, I think you can guess what happens next. Flash forward about 28 days, and bike courier Jim wakes up alone in hospital after a car crash put him into a coma. The place is weirdly deserted and ransacked, and as a weak and confused Jim makes his way outside, he begins to find clues about the apocalyptic virus that ravaged the country while he was asleep. And well, it doesn't take too long for him to run into one of the victims. Damn, son. Things are looking grim for Jim, but luckily he's rescued by a group of survivors who take him in and bring him up to speed on what's been going on. Basically, the entire country's fucked, the government's collapsed, and most of the population are either dead or infected. Their only chance of survival is to get to a military base up north, where a radio broadcast promises them salvation. Sounds legit to me. So the story follows Jim and the other survivors as they make their way through the devastated country, overcoming various problems and challenges and doing their best to avoid the infecteds. But will all of them make it to the base? And even if they do, is it really the safe haven that they were promised? It's no secret that the zombie genre had pretty much run out of steam by the 1990s. The George Romero movies were a distant memory, and generally the idea of slow-moving walking corpses was seen as funny rather than scary. But 28 Days Later changed all of that, giving us enemies that were fast, agile, violent, and relentless. In short, it made zombies fucking scary again. I think one of my favourite scenes is when the group's van gets a flat tyre, forcing them to stop and change it in an underground tunnel. And wouldn't you know it, the infected begin to close in. You can see the shadows of them on the tunnel walls, you can hear their inhuman howls and screams, and damn, even the rats are running away from them. It's a brilliantly tense, chilling sequence as the group work frantically to finish their task before it's too late. But tense action scenes like this are balanced out perfectly by somber, reflective moments where characters ponder what the future might hold without civilization, or witness nature beginning to take over now that humans are gone, or uncover little moments of human tragedy in all the chaos. The desperate souls who took shelter in a church as the world collapsed around them. The loving couple who chose to go out on their own terms rather than wait for the infected to get to them. Instead of focusing on the chaos and destruction of the outbreak itself, which is what bigger budget and more traditional Hollywood films might have done, 28 Days Later is all about the aftermath. What happens when civilization has already fallen? How do the small groups of survivors find a way to keep going? What lengths will people go to stay alive? It's a film very much anchored in the humanity that gets caught up in big disaster stories. It spends a good deal of time fleshing out its cast and letting you get to know them, and as a result, it helps to keep you invested in what's going on. When the group are in danger, you're on the edge of your seat because these are characters that you actually care about, caught in a brutal and unforgiving world. People can and often do die in this film, sometimes for no other reason than sheer bad luck. Performances are rock solid across the board. Cillian Murphy and Brendan Gleeson are both brilliant actors and really bring their A-game to every scene that they're in. They're not heroes, but they're believable and grounded human beings doing their best to stay alive. Naomi Harris strikes a perfect balance between pragmatic resourcefulness and compassionate vulnerability. Her character is a strong and capable survivor who's clearly not afraid to make hard choices to stay alive, but she never quite loses her humanity in the process. And Christopher Eccleston manages to be both reasonable and sinister as Major West, an army officer just barely able to keep his men under control. Danny Boyle's not a director you'd traditionally associate with horror movies, but I think his style complements the more grounded, mature tone of the story perfectly. He's able to capture the confusion and fear of the infected, but he's equally capable of delivering peaceful, dreamlike sequences that almost cause you to forget the nightmare these characters are trapped in. Honestly, I can't think of much to say against this movie. 28 Days Later is a gripping, chilling and moving story of survival against the odds, made by actors and directors that perfectly understand what they're doing, and it delivers more memorable moments in 10 minutes than most films could hope for in their entire runtime. And in case you've forgotten just how effective effective it is, I can heartily recommend you go back and rewatch it right now. Anyway, that's all I've got for today. Go away now.